3 days ago, at 5:58 a.m., on my 30th birthday, my phone buzzed. A message from Mason, my boyfriend of 3 years. Morning. We need to break up. I know this seems sudden, but I've been thinking about this for weeks. I can't do this anymore. I stared at the words, sitting upright in bed, the darkness swallowing the room, while the phone screen glared back at me like a spotlight on my chest. I read the message 3 times, my heart hammering, my hands trembling. Then, almost instinctively, I typed one word. Sure. I am Julia, 30 years old, a structural engineer in Austin. I live in a small townhouse I bought myself, spend weekends covered in sawdust doing DIY projects, and strum the guitar badly in my garage. Mason and I met at a Super Bowl party 3 years ago. He's 32, an advertising account manager, confident and magnetic, the kind of man whose energy draws people in, completely opposite to my quiet, methodical nature. Our Sunday mornings became sacred. Pancakes at the diner near my place, followed by home improvement projects. I measured, he picked colors. We moved in sync, like a well-rehearsed dance. Or at least, that's what I believed, until 6 months ago. Mason's agency hired a new creative director, Nadia Blake, and everything changed. Suddenly, Mason's schedule revolved around late meetings, rooftop networking events, and brunches that were mandatory. His phone habits shifted, screen down, secretive passwords, hidden notifications. He angled his phone away when I leaned over. Intimacy vanished. Excuses piled up. 2 months ago, I tried talking to him gently. Can we talk? I feel like we haven't really connected lately. He laughed bitterly. Are you serious? Are you jealous or trying to control me? I have a career, Julia. I can't drop everything because you feel needy. Oh. I froze, hurt twisting in my chest. I'm not asking you to drop anything. I just miss you. He smirked, cold. Maybe if you had more going on in your life, you wouldn't be so focused on mine. And just like that, the little red flags I'd been ignoring, late nights, sudden secrecy, vague excuses, exploded in my mind. Then came my birthday. Mason had promised something special, a rooftop dinner, a night I would always remember. The day before, a text. I have the worst headache. Can we do it tomorrow? I let it slide, but deep down I already knew the celebration would never happen. And now at 5:58 a.m., Mason's clinical, detached breakup text confirmed every suspicion I'd tried to bury. I typed sure, blocked him everywhere, and felt nothing. Just a hollow, calm relief. 3 days later, Mason's next move, and Nadia's quiet presence, waiting just down the street, would shatter everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and betrayal. I never thought I'd be standing on the edge of betrayal and heartbreak, looking back at the life I had built so carefully. But to understand how I got here, I need to take you back 3 years, to the first time I met Mason. I was 27, fully absorbed in my world of blueprints, structural calculations, and weekend DIY projects. I liked my life orderly, predictable, controlled. Mason was the opposite. He had this effortless charm, this energy that seemed to fill every room the moment he walked in. We met at a Super Bowl party, of all places. He was cheering wildly with friends. I was awkwardly nursing a soda in the corner. One of his friends bumped into me, spilled a drink, and Mason appeared instantly, apologizing, his grin bright enough to make me forget the embarrassment. That night, we talked about everything and nothing, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Excitement. From the start, our differences seemed complementary. I loved planning, measuring, and ensuring every detail was perfect. Mason thrived on spontaneity, social events, and unexpected adventures. We fell into a rhythm. Sunday mornings at the diner for pancakes, endless discussions over coffee, afternoons painting, assembling furniture, or simply laughing at our failed attempts at IKEA assembly. These small, mundane routines felt intimate, sacred even. They gave me comfort, a sense that I was finally home. Our relationship wasn't without its cracks, though. Mason had a charming recklessness that sometimes irritated me, missing small plans, forgetting minor details, brushing off responsibilities, but I always rationalized it as part of his personality. I thought love meant compromise, giving a little more than you take, overlooking small imperfections. 6 months ago, Mason's world shifted. His agency hired a new creative director, Nadia Blake, a poised, ambitious woman with a magnetic presence. Mason's schedule suddenly became a tangle of late-night strategy sessions, rooftop networking events, and weekend brunches with clients. His phone habits changed overnight. Screen face down, passwords switched, notifications hidden. I noticed him pulling away, but he always had excuses. Work is crazy this week. The team is behind on deadlines. I promise I'll make it up to you. I wanted to trust him, so I did. Looking back, the first subtle signs were easy to dismiss. A laugh at a text he quickly hid, a glance away when I tried to lean closer, a sudden tension when I casually asked about a meeting. Then there were the moments that pricked at my gut but were easily rationalized. Nadia always needed him at late sessions. She was always there when he worked weekends, her name popping up in subtle ways on his social media. Despite it all, our shared life continued. Mason's family adored me, or so I thought. His mother always asked how I was doing, fussed over my clothes, my job, my quirks. His sister invited me to family dinners and holidays, praising my energy and patience. I felt accepted, part of a family, intertwined with Mason in ways that made leaving unthinkable. Even amid the growing distance, there were moments that kept me holding on. A surprise coffee, a hand on my back as we walked, a genuine smile that seemed to say, "I see you, Julia, I still care." Those small gestures were enough to make me forgive his lapses, ignore the gnawing doubt, and believe in us again. But as I sit here, piecing everything together, I realize now that those small, fleeting moments were not proof of love. They were breadcrumbs, illusions crafted by someone who had already started walking away, someone whose attention was slowly shifting to another, Nadia. By the time Nadia arrived on the scene, Mason and I had been together for 2.5 years. Our routines were comfortable, predictable: Sunday breakfasts, Saturday projects, late-night movies. But something subtle began to shift. At first, I chalked it up to work stress, deadlines, the normal ebb and flow of long-term relationships. But slowly, the details started adding up. His phone, once always lying face up on the kitchen counter, now face down, locked with a new password. Calls would end abruptly as I walked into the room. Notifications popped up briefly before disappearing. Small gestures I once cherished, a text in the middle of the day, a call just to ask how I was, disappeared entirely. Then there were Nadia's appearances. She was always around during late-night strategy sessions, attending the same rooftop events Mason had to go to, smiling with him in photos on his company Instagram. I convinced myself it was professional, but a tiny voice in my gut whispered otherwise. Why hide his phone? Why dodge my questions? Why become so secretive? I brought up my feelings gently. "Mason, I feel like we're drifting. Can we talk?" I tried to be calm, rational, loving. He rolled his eyes. "Julia, are you serious? Are you jealous or just trying to control me? I have responsibilities, a career. I can't drop everything because you're insecure." It stung. His words weren't just defensive, they were accusatory, dismissive. I felt the first real pangs of doubt and hurt, the kind that seeps into your chest and won't let go. I wanted to believe him, to trust him, to chalk it up to a busy season, but my instincts screamed otherwise. Mason's friends and colleagues unintentionally fueled my unease. Offhand comments about how hard he worked, jokes about his late nights with Nadia, even supportive nods when he subtly deflected my questions, made me feel isolated. I began second-guessing my feelings. Was I imagining things? Was I too controlling, too sensitive, too demanding? Small arguments started cropping up, more frequent now. Misunderstandings over missed calls, casual lies about extra work or traffic delays, and the way Mason's tone would harden when I pressed gently for honesty. The apartment felt smaller, colder. Nights I once looked forward to, our quiet, shared routines, became exercises in careful observation, in testing, in trying not to provoke defensiveness. Then the hints became undeniable. A screenshot on a friend's social media story showed Mason and Nadia at a rooftop event, standing closer than anyone else, laughing like they shared a secret I wasn't privy to. Casual touches, subtle body language, inside jokes, I started connecting dots I had deliberately ignored. At that moment, I realized the carefree trust I had in our relationship was slipping away. The cozy Sunday mornings, the DIY projects, the laughter. They were being overshadowed by secrets, tension, and a gnawing unease. The first cracks had appeared, and with each passing day, the house we had built together felt more like a fragile structure ready to collapse. I wanted to confront him, to demand honesty, but fear held me back. What if I was wrong? What if I ruined something that could have been saved? The tension, the uncertainty, the quiet panic in my chest. It all started here, in the quiet, insidious moments that planted the seed for the chaos to come. It was supposed to be an ordinary day. I had taken the morning off work, my 30th birthday just passed, trying to put the unease from the previous weeks behind me. But the quiet of my townhouse was shattered by the ping of my phone, a message that would upend everything. Mason had sent me a text, short and clinical. "I can't do this anymore. I've been thinking about this for weeks. I need to break up." My body went rigid. My hands froze around my coffee mug. I reread the message 3 times, willing the words to change, willing my mind to misinterpret them. But there was no mistake. He was ending 3 years of our lives together via text, on my birthday. I felt nothing at first, no anger, no tears, just a hollow emptiness, as though someone had carved out a piece of my chest and left a vacuum behind. Then the memories hit like a wave. All the late nights, the hidden phone, the rooftop brunches with Nadia, the casual touches, the jokes meant only for her. I tried calling him, no answer. I sent messages, ignored. My mind raced, sifting through every moment, every conversation, every excuse I had accepted. The rational part of me wanted to believe there had been a misunderstanding, that this was a reaction to stress, work pressure, something external. But deep down, the truth had been there all along, whispering through each omission, each secretive glance, each unexplained absence. 2 days later, Mason showed up at my doorstep. Tears streaked down his face, mascara smudged, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. In his hands, a gift bag with tissue paper peeking out, a pathetic attempt at normalcy. My eyes followed him to the street, and there it was. Nadia's car, parked 4 houses down, engine running like she was waiting, watching, orchestrating this entire scene. I stood frozen for 2 minutes, observing through the peephole. Mason kept knocking, voice trembling. "Julia, please, we need to talk. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Please, just open the door." But my body betrayed me. My hand hovered over the doorknob, my chest tight, my throat constricted. I couldn't move. Finally, they left, shoulders shaking, walking side by side into the car, driving off together. My mind spun. Who breaks up with someone via text on their birthday after promising to make it special, then shows up crying with another person waiting nearby? I felt disbelief, confusion, and a sick, nauseous anger all at once. My body trembled, my chest heaving, as I tried to steady myself. That evening, Adrian called. "Julia, are you okay? Like, actually okay?" I laughed bitterly, a sound I didn't recognize. Weirdly calm, relieved, almost. I've been holding my breath for months. It finally happened, and I can breathe. But the relief was hollow. My gut was screaming. Nadia's presence had changed everything. Mason had hidden details, lied, and betrayed me. Adrian's words confirmed it. That's textbook manipulation when someone's hiding something. He wasn't honest with you. It was true. I had been blindsided by orchestrated deception, carefully hidden behind smiles, excuses, and late-night work sessions. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was strategic, calculated. The house we had built together, the trust we had nurtured, had been quietly dismantled, brick by brick, by the one person I had loved most. I spent the rest of that morning in stunned silence, curled up on my couch, letting the chill of the air conditioning do nothing to warm the cold knot in my stomach. My mind replayed every interaction, every seemingly innocent comment from Mason, every touch that now felt like a lie. I could still feel the heat of the doorframe under my hand, my fingers frozen, my breath shallow, the taste of metal in my mouth from the panic rising in waves. I asked myself the questions I had avoided for months. Had I ignored the signs? Was I too trusting? Had I allowed my desire to maintain peace to blind me to reality? Each thought brought a pang of guilt, a crushing weight that pressed down on my chest. My rational mind knew this wasn't my fault entirely, but part of me couldn't escape the nagging notion that I had been complicit in my own heartbreak. By midday, I knew I had to confront Mason, but not with anger, not yet. I needed clarity. So I called, finally managing to reach him. His voice was tight, defensive, hesitant. Julia, please, can we just talk? I let him speak, listening more than responding. He tried to explain, to rationalize, but every word was a reminder of what had already happened, the months of deception, the secret glances, the hidden calls. I could hear Nadia's influence in every excuse, every story he spun about deadlines and work stress. When he tried to shift blame, I wasn't ready to tell you about Nadia. It was complicated. You wouldn't understand the pressures of work. I felt a surge of clarity. I realized that explanations weren't going to restore trust. They weren't going to erase the sleepless nights, the gnawing suspicion, the moments I had questioned my own judgment. The first confrontation happened a few days later. Tentative, measured, held in the quiet of my living room. Mason tried to justify his actions. I spoke with calm fury, my voice steady, even as my hands shook. You left me, Mason, on my birthday. You hid everything, lied, and involved someone else. That's not a mistake. It's a choice. I could see the guilt in his eyes, the fleeting shame, but I didn't let it sway me. I had spent too long rationalizing behavior that was unacceptable. I stayed composed, letting my emotions be felt, but not dominate. I wanted him to understand the impact, not to excuse it. That night, alone, I sat on my balcony, letting the city lights blur through my tears. I reflected on my own patterns, how I had tolerated little lies, brushed off red flags, ignored my intuition in favor of love that felt safe. I vowed silently that I wouldn't let fear of loss or hope for change blind me again. I was strong enough to face this, to survive this. By confronting the situation with measured emotion, I reclaimed a fragment of power that had been stolen by deception. It wasn't about revenge, it was about truth, about recognizing my own worth and refusing to settle for less than respect and honesty. The days after our first confrontation were surreal. Mason's avoidance, Nadia's subtle presence online, and the constant whisper of rumors made every interaction feel like walking on glass. But the real escalation began when his family, sensing tension, stepped in. His mother called, ostensibly out of concern, but the tone carried judgment. Julia, are you sure you're not overreacting? Mason is under a lot of pressure at work. Don't let this misunderstanding ruin your relationship. I felt a flicker of irritation. It wasn't concern, they were defending him, subtly shifting blame onto me. His sister joined in, half-heartedly trying to mediate, but mostly echoing their doubts. Every word, every glance made me feel like an intruder in the family I had once felt accepted by. Meanwhile, my friends noticed the shift in Mason's behavior. Adrian sent screenshots from social media, Nadia at rooftop events, casual touches captured in photos, messages suggesting a closeness Mason hadn't shared with me. Each piece of evidence made my stomach drop deeper, each image another crack in the facade I had clung to. One evening, Mason attempted to meet at a cafe, insisting we talk privately. I agreed, more out of a desire for closure than hope. As he spoke, justifying the choices he had made, I noticed the subtle shifts in his expressions, the guilt flashing, quickly masked by charm. I had grown attuned to every micro-expression, every hesitation, every diversion. Julia, you have to understand, Nadia and I were just confused. It wasn't what it looked like, he said, his hands trembling slightly. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. Confused? Mason, the signs were everywhere. The hidden messages, the rooftop photos, the excuses. You didn't just confuse feelings. You chose secrecy over honesty. And now you expect me to just forgive that? The tension escalated further when Mason's coworkers unintentionally fueled the fire. Casual mentions of lunch outings, late-night strategy sessions, and insider jokes between him and Nadia made the betrayal undeniable. Each conversation outside our relationship validated the suspicions I had worked so hard to suppress. Back at home, the emotional toll became physical. Sleepless nights, anxiety tightening my chest, and a creeping sense of isolation that made every small sound in my apartment feel amplified. The stability I had relied upon, the sense of control I cherished, had been replaced with uncertainty, suspicion, and simmering anger. I began journaling obsessively, detailing every interaction, every lie, every moment I had doubted myself. Writing became my anchor, a way to regain some sense of clarity amidst the storm. I didn't lash out physically or socially, Instead, I gathered information, observed, and prepared myself. I realized I couldn't stop the chaos Mason and Nadia had created, but I could control my response. Each new piece of evidence, each defensive word from Mason, each awkward intervention from his family made one thing painfully clear. The trust I had placed in him had been eroded beyond repair. The argument was no longer just about infidelity. It was about power, control, and the recognition that I deserved truth, respect, and honesty in every interaction. By the time I left that cafe, my resolve was solidifying. I wouldn't crumble. I wouldn't beg for explanations. I would confront, document, and protect myself from further manipulation. The escalation was complete, not just in our relationship, but in my awareness that the life I had built with him was at risk, and I was ready to fight for my own dignity. I never imagined heartbreak could feel like this. Not just sorrow, but a profound sense of emptiness, as if the ground had been pulled out from under me. My townhouse, once a sanctuary filled with laughter and DIY projects, now felt cavernous and cold. Shadows pooled in corners, and even the sunlight seemed hesitant to enter. Mason's presence, or rather, his absence, was everywhere. His voice lingered in my mind, a haunting echo of broken promises. Nadia's image appeared in every online feed, every rooftop event, every casual social photo. The betrayal wasn't just an act, it was a constant, living thing, feeding on my vulnerability. Friends tried to reach me, but I pushed them away. I couldn't bear their pity, their well-meaning attempts to console me. "You'll get through this," they said. But I didn't know if I could. Each day blurred into the next, a monochrome loop of anxiety and sleepless nights. My appetite vanished, and every mundane task, laundry, groceries, even making coffee, felt like climbing a mountain. The first time I allowed myself to cry, I fell apart entirely. On my kitchen floor, mascara smeared, hair tangle, I shook with sobs I had tried to suppress for weeks. I thought about every memory, Sunday breakfasts, laughter over spilled paint, our quiet nights, and I realized they were all tainted now, replaced by the sting of deceit. Isolation deepened the wound. Mason's family continued to call, check in, subtly implying that maybe I had overreacted, that I should forgive, that my pride was clouding reality. Each call was like a knife twisting in a wound I couldn't close. Even the walls of my home felt like witnesses to my vulnerability, silently judging my perceived weakness. I found myself replaying the 3 days after our breakup, Mason's desperate return, tears streaking his face, Nadia waiting down the street. How could someone orchestrate such a cruel charade? The betrayal wasn't impulsive, it was calculated. That realization, more than any argument or confrontation, crushed me. I stayed awake at night, scrolling through photos I had kept, reading messages I had once treasured, trying to find any hint of truth. There was none. Only the hollow echo of trust broken, a life disrupted, and the realization that the person I had loved with everything in me had treated me as disposable, as a backup, as a test. In that moment, despair became clarity. I could feel it coiling around my chest, a cold, relentless pressure, but with it came a faint spark, a small, stubborn insistence that I would survive this. Maybe it was too early to see it fully, maybe the wounds were too fresh, but somewhere beneath the tears and exhaustion, a resolve began to form. I was at the lowest point, and yet, paradoxically, I knew that hitting rock bottom was the first step toward rising again. The betrayal had stripped me bare, but it had also revealed something fundamental. I deserved better, I deserved honesty, and I was capable of reclaiming my life. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, but instead of warmth, it illuminated a sharp clarity. I had spent weeks in a fog of betrayal, isolation, and exhaustion. But today, something inside me shifted. A simmering anger, tempered with resolve, replaced the despair that had gripped me. I started with the evidence. Emails, screenshots, social media posts, subtle hints I had once rationalized away. They were all there. Nadia and Mason's coordinated deceptions, the calculated birthday text, the rooftop photos, all meticulously documented. I printed them, arranged them, and watched the truth lay itself bare. For the first time, the fog lifted. and I saw the situation not through the lens of heartbreak, but through one of undeniable reality. Then I reached out to someone neutral, Adrian. I walked him through everything: the timeline, the messages, the confrontations, the manipulations. His eyes widened at the depth of the betrayal. Julia, this isn't just heartbreak. This is control, deceit, and manipulation. You're not the one at fault here. Hearing it aloud from someone I trusted was transformative. I realized that the power Mason and Nadia had wielded over me was an illusion, built on my own willingness to give it to them. I had been passive, seeking understanding where there was none, hoping for honesty where only calculation existed. Now I was done hoping. I was done rationalizing. I called Mason. My voice was calm, measured, but it carried a weight he hadn't heard in months. We need to finalize this. There's nothing left to discuss. I'm done being your backup plan. He stammered, defensive. Julia, No, there's nothing to explain. The truth is clear. I know what happened, and I'm not letting it control me anymore. I hung up before he could argue, before he could manipulate again. For the first time in weeks, my chest felt open, my shoulders unburdened. The weight of betrayal remained, but I had reclaimed my autonomy. Later that day, I went for a walk. The city felt different, brighter somehow. Every step was deliberate, a reminder that I was moving forward, leaving behind the deceit that had trapped me. My phone sat untouched in my pocket. No messages, no apologies, no explanations. Just me, breathing, existing on my terms. The turning point wasn't a dramatic confrontation or a public reckoning. It was internal, quiet, and powerful. I recognized my value, understood the toxicity I had endured, and made a conscious choice. I would not allow my life to be dictated by those who could not respect me. That night, I wrote in my journal, not with sorrow, but with intention. I am not a plan B. I am not a test. I am enough, and I choose myself. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of empowerment, the kind that comes from clarity and self-respect. The next steps would be decisive, but I knew they would be deliberate, measured, and unflinchingly firm. The days that followed were a testament to the inevitability of truth. Once the evidence was out, Mason's carefully constructed world began to crumble. Colleagues, who had once turned a blind eye, confronted him privately, awkward glances and hushed conversations betraying their awareness of his manipulations. HR at his company, informed by clear documentation, stepped in with formal notices and restrictions. Nadia, too, faced her own reckoning. Her casual smirk in rooftop photos and social posts no longer carried charm. It became a symbol of deceit that everyone around her could see. Colleagues whispered, managers questioned her judgment, and the emotional affair she had cultivated with Mason became an open secret, eroding her professional credibility. Mason's family, initially defensive, slowly withdrew their support. His mother's calls became fewer, colder, tinged with disappointment. His sister stopped mediating, uncomfortable with the mounting evidence and the undeniable truth of his choices. The walls of protection he had once enjoyed were gone, and he was left to confront the reality he had meticulously avoided. Meanwhile, I moved deliberately through my own life. I canceled lingering obligations that tied me to Mason, returned items he had left behind, and blocked all possible forms of contact. My townhouse, once a space heavy with memories of betrayal, began to feel like home again. I organized, redecorated, and reclaimed it as my sanctuary. The first time I saw Mason in public after everything, it was surreal. He looked at me, eyes wide, perhaps hoping for a flicker of regret or submission. But I walked past with calm certainty. No glance back, no emotion betraying my internal state. I had nothing left to give him, not anger, not pity, not attention. I was untouchable in my resolve, untethered from the manipulation that had once ensnared me. Friends and family became my pillars. Maya hosted a casual brunch, laughter filling the air, reinforcing the normalcy I had feared lost. Adrian and others provided perspective, their presence reminding me that support existed beyond the confines of a toxic relationship. The world wasn't ending, it was reordering itself around truth, and I was no longer a pawn in someone else's game. The fallout wasn't about revenge. I didn't seek to humiliate Mason publicly or to punish Nadia with cruel social posts. Instead, it was about boundaries, self respect, and letting natural consequences occur. Truth had a way of settling accounts without theatrics, and I watched as the integrity I had maintained became my shield, while deceit faltered under its own weight. By the time I closed the door on that chapter, I was calm, composed, and unexpectedly free. Mason and Nadia faced the social and professional consequences of their choices, but I didn't need to witness it. My victory wasn't in their downfall, it was in my reclamation of agency, dignity, and peace. The months after the fallout felt like spring after a long, harsh winter. Slowly, deliberately, I rebuilt my life, not around someone else, but around myself. My townhouse, once a silent witness to betrayal, became a canvas for renewal. I converted the garage into a small woodworking studio, crafting shelves and tables that bore my own touch. Each stroke of sandpaper, each carefully measured cut, felt therapeutic, an act of creation after months of emotional demolition. Therapy became a cornerstone of my recovery. For 6 months, I unpacked every subtle sign I had ignored, every moment I had rationalized away. My therapist helped me understand the patterns, the tendencies to accommodate others at the expense of my own intuition. I learned to trust myself again, to notice red flags, to honor my gut feelings instead of dismissing them. Then, life offered a gentle, unexpected new beginning. I met Elena, a calm and grounded presence amidst the chaos of my recent past. She was 29, a CPA, focused, intentional, and refreshingly transparent. Our first meetings were simple: shared meals, casual conversations, quiet evenings, no social media dramatics, no hidden agendas, no games. For the first time in years, I felt the warmth of honesty and respect. One evening, as we cooked together in her kitchen, her phone rang. She excused herself, explained the call, and returned without a hint of secrecy or tension. It was a simple act, but it spoke volumes: transparency, integrity, and the ability to coexist without suspicion. I realized then that trust could be easy, effortless, and natural, not fraught with doubt or manipulation. I ran into Mason and Nadia once at a grocery store months later. We exchanged a fleeting glance across the produce section, neutral, almost surreal. No anger, no wave, no acknowledgement beyond the briefest recognition. It was strange, but appropriate. Two people who had once held space in my life were gone, replaced by a clarity that only truth and self-respect could provide. Writing this final reflection, I feel compelled to share what I've learned. If someone ends 3 years of your life with a text message orchestrated by another person, believe them the first time. People who cannot respect you during your milestones will never protect you during your darkest moments. They are not chapters in your story, they are footnotes, reminders of what you will never accept again. The person you choose should add to your peace, not subtract from it. They should make you feel more yourself, not less. And when your intuition screams that something is wrong, trust it, even when the explanation seems reasonable. I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. Life is quieter now, but richer. Steve and I are taking it slow, savoring the honesty, the steady rhythm, the authenticity. And I feel, finally, a sense of calm triumph, the kind that comes not from revenge or closure, but from reclaiming one's own life, one deliberate choice at a time. I am Julia. I am whole. I am enough. And I will never settle for anything less.